Well. Big day today. Welcome back to Krown's Crypto Cave. There's plenty to talk about on basically all time frames, actually, as we follow from yesterday's short-term time frame analysis. And, it's Cyberpunk Day. Fuck yeah, man. And that means that it's going to be a Twitch day today, or extremely likely. You never know what sort of weird things pop up in the middle of the day. But with that said, I would like to wish you the best and the happiest. And let's get on into it right here, right now. So starting off with the Krown Chain application, which we found at app.krownchain.net. What do we see? We do see Bitcoin dominance more or less in the same area that we saw yesterday, still hanging around just above 62.5%. Of which that is very interesting, seeing as Bitcoin is more or less ranging on the whole. We aren't really breaking trend just yet, and altcoins actually not having the best time during that time. So we are seeing a bit of a stop in the rotational markets right here, which is a point of consideration to be bringing in when looking at altcoin versus Bitcoin pairings. But at the end of the day, does it really affect Bitcoin? Now, Bitcoin decides direction for US dollar, and then altcoins get to follow. Looking at open interest, what do we see? Still hanging around 3.3 billion as well. Still want to see a break of the top side of the range above 3.25 billion, above 19,550 is what I mean to say. To the downside, though, we don't really have a bottom side of it just yet, or at least I don't feel comfortable with stating that just yet. And fear and greed index also popping up about 8 points from an 86 to a 94. So let's go into the data tab right here, and what do we see? We do see nothing because it hasn't loaded. There we go. Okay, sweet one. Anyways, any canaries in the coal mine today? I want to see you Blue Jays flip-flopping around, you little angry bird fuckers. And what do we see? We see pretty much everyone right around parity at 0.01%. FTX actually posting a negative rate, negative 0.02%, which is not anything too crazy anyways. And FEMAX probably is a bad feed. And with that said, that means that there's no major considerations right here. We're seeing kind of what we would expect to see in a long-form consolidation as Bitcoin does gear up in the short-term timeframes, actually. And actually, we have several higher-term timeframes closing today as well. I believe the 3-day and maybe even the 2-day at the same time. So into the price action charts we go, and let's follow up on yesterday's short-term time frame analysis first, and we'll go over here to our main charts actually. And we did get our move down to the 382 Fibonacci retracement right here at 17,500ish region. Also the 200 simple and 200 exponential average on the 4 hour, and a nice little horizontal coming in from our last breakout and breakdown from early November and then middle of November. And actually late November as well. So all of November. And what now? How has this changed things? Well, at the end of the day, yes, the bounce has been pretty damn significant, but it still has not necessarily gotten over the critical level that I'd be looking for to really be solidified on this as operating as the low, so to speak, the low. Now, the response has been incredibly good, and don't get me wrong, $1,000 move from top to bottom is certainly very, very impressive, no doubt about that, but I still need to see levels broken, and the way that I define that is I look at the prior breakdown area, which was this 18,700-ish region right here. You could just do 18,650 now, as it is a bit of a lower side liquid zone there, and as long as we're living below there, yes, I do still think that there's potential for Bitcoin to come back down and grind this area out, but as we've seen over the last day, and what I really wanted to harp on yesterday's Forex analysis video after we sort of did see that move come to the downside, as we were looking for, is essentially right now I'm actually very much hands off. I don't really want to force my opinion on this one. I'm happy to trade above that critical level to the upside, but at the same time I'd be very defensive against another move back onto the downside. The response, however, does make me a lot more confident in the whole formation being solidified as likely putting in a higher low. I mean, that's what we obviously have on a 4 hour, and you can see that the daily is going to try to do that and confirm that. Some people would actually look at this as already confirmed. The reason being because it was a massive hammer dildo, which is also being brought back above the 21 exponential average, and actually did have a pretty damn good closure there. But I would say, if you want to be super conservative, you'd want to see a close today above yesterday's close. And that would solidify this as a local low, and not just a local low, but a higher low, and a higher low in the context of higher highs and higher lows, and that would be your uptrend, and that would make this really start to look like some sort of a reaccumulation formation at the top of the range here, which is incredibly bullish. When you're consolidating around your prior all-time highs. Let me just make sure that everything's going over here. Okay, good. All right, sweet. So with that said, let's go into our secondary charts right here and see what we're printing at the current moment in time. Let's go to a daily, and daily actually did close below the 20 simple, and here's where I do come, and this is why I'm a little bit more on the conservative side here. I know a lot of people are probably going to look at yesterday's price action and immediately say, up, we're going up to the fucking moon, and maybe that is true, but as a trader here, I do look at this area as kind of fraught with peril. Doesn't mean that Bitcoin can't get back above it, but it's as long as it's below it, I still have a big question mark in the back of my mind's eye saying, hey, is this really the time that I want to be like holding on to potentially long-term positions? Well, potentially yes, but that would really be solidified, at least in my opinion, with another close on a daily above basically that 18,650-ish pivot. Again, the same sort of breakdown level that we saw 2 days ago on that major, massive, girthy red dildo party. Now, I do want to reference, or what else do I want to reference here? Yes, that's right. Okay, the DMI ADX. I did a video on this last week, so everyone should be kind of on the same page with this, or assuming that you actually, happen to give a fuck. And what do we see right here? This is also why I'm a little bit more on the conservative side with this, and the reason being is because we don't really see anything that's dominant on the daily. So what I would expect if this is going to be the low is I want to see two things happen probably on this next daily total closure. I want to see one daily closure above the 20 simple, which is going to be at that 18.6 level or 18.650. That would probably be good enough on its own for myself, and we can start to talk about moves back up to like 19,200 or whatever it is. And on top of that, I want to see the DMI ADX get a DMI plus dominant signal plus the ADX strengthening. If we see those two things happen, especially, I would be looking for another move back up to the actually to the mid like $19,000 region. This is going to start to look really, really good as we do have a nice, lovely consolidation, and it would be higher low structure right here. And you can just imagine, you can just visualize that, which I really don't think is a good idea to begin with, but it'd be something like this, which is an ascending triangle at the top side of a range, higher lows and same highs essentially at the, again, former all-time high. That would be a bullish reaccumulation formation, and that typically is what you see when assets are getting ready to blast off to new all-time highs. Now, on top of that, I imagine we probably do have some sort of divergence call to be made here as well. Let's see, is there any potential hidden bullish divergence in play? Yes, there would be if this confirms as a higher low. Again, I am using conservative settings with my caretaker RSI. For more aggressive people, they'll look at the structure right here and they will immediately say, yes, that is confirmed. We're going back up, and seen as, yeah, this RSI read right here is significantly higher than what we're dealing with right here. That would imply a hidden bullish divergence target probably back up to like 19.4 or 19.5. So those are the two sort of main things going on right now. Do I think that Bitcoin is going to break back down and create new lows on this run? No, I do believe that this is if what we're looking at right now is a bullish reaccumulation formation. We did see the low yesterday, as we spoke about, into the mid $17,000 region. Doesn't mean that we can't come back down and grind it out. It's just I wouldn't be looking for really lower lows on top of that. If we take out yesterday's low to the downside at 17,639 on GDAX, and just for exchange right there, then there's probably gonna be some bigger problems. And at the very least, I'd be looking for a move back down around these wick lows into the upper $16,000 region. So we're talking about another $1,000 move to the downside. But for right now, I do err on the side of the trend, and the trend is your friend. And in this case, it's I guess it is looking more or less okay here. However, when I do go into the short-term timeframes, I would say that the 4 hour is, the 4 hour looks like it wants to come back down, to be honest with you. It does look like it wants to come back down and test around the 200 simple and 200 exponential average again. But I would look at that as an opportunity. So that's why I'm very conservative right now. I don't really want to call this as a loan. We just green dilled our way to the skies. I think what's more likely here, to be honest with you, is Bitcoin comes back down, maybe tests into the upper $17,000 region, and then perhaps flips back around, and then we'll see, this whole range kind of transact a little bit more. I also want to reference a comment that I got yesterday as well. Because someone says, I've never seen someone so happy when Bitcoin's crashing. It's like, well, I mean, we've had these targets for a while now, and we've been very patient for the last couple of weeks when Bitcoin was above 19,000 bucks, saying that, hey, yes, things are bullish on all higher term timeframes, absolutely, but that doesn't mean that we have to, just go green dildo to the fucking, heavens in a vertical line. At the end of the day, things, typically ebb and flow. I believe that's what we're seeing right here. Also, I would strongly question your idea of a Bitcoin crash, sir. Yesterday was actually quite an easy day, in my opinion. Why do I say that? Because from yesterday open, which was right around here, to yesterday low, that was only about a 4% move. Now, Sir, what I would like to what I'd like to learn you with is a little bit of this action over here. Sir, if a 4% move really does you in and you consider that a crash, I got some news for you, sir. I got some news for you. Let me show you back on over here. Let me show you back on to 2019. We had a little bit of some crash in action over here, and guess what happened? 17% move to the downside. Pretty fucking nasty if you ask me. Now, is that a death sentence? No, in fact, no, it's not at all. Because guess what? Guess what happens on coronavirus time? Oh, it's a little bit of this action in one day. 42 fucking %. You're going to be doing all this the whole goddamn time, sir. Oh, wait, hold on. We need to have, that's it. Yes, let's make it louder. And sir, you're going to be doing all of this all fucking day. Yeah, there you go, baby. There you fucking go. Oh, and guess what about this in 2018? Do you remember this, sir? Do you remember this? We had... Oh no, another. And the fucking grand finale. You ready for this, sir? You ready for an actual fucking crash? You ready for an actual motherfucking crash right here? I'll show you motherfucking crash. Oh, what's this? December 23rd of 2017. Down almost $6,000 fucking dollars in the same goddamn day. 34.5% to the downside. So, sir, I question your judgment if you consider this very small move that we saw to the downside yesterday, 5% move, as anything more than just ranging. You're fucked. Sorry, but seriously, this is Bitcoin we're talking about here. Bitcoin is a crazy motherfucker, and if 5% really rocks your socks, then unfortunately, I have to let you know that in the past, that has really not been much of anything different than just a normal Tuesday, or in this case, I guess a normal Wednesday. So yeah. Anyways, all jokes aside, my point is that, hey, we're dealing with big numbers here. And when we're dealing with big numbers, naturally speaking, $1,000 move at this price point is really is technically not all that big from a percentage standpoint. Now, with that said, does that mean that $1,000 move is still not $1,000 move? Fuck no, it's still a $1,000 move. And that's really powerful, of course. And that's why we love it as traders. But it sounds like you might be an investor. and investors don't need to worry about anything anyways, because they're hodling till the day that they die, right? That's the old trick, eh? Anyways, let's go through low term time frame momentum oscillators and see what we got going on right now. We do see 4-hour Stokes actually up and at them here, but they're right at the edge of the bearish control zone. So the way that I look at this is that we are grinding up short term resistance to the upside, or I guess this is more like a medium term now, because this one does operate as a major pivot for this range. We'll just have it right here between 18,650 and 18,700, and actually want to get a nice little blue box in here. This is going to be a big one, actually. If Bitcoin can get back above this level, I'm immediately, basically bullish, looking for Bitcoin to probably green deal its way another few $100 above $19,000 again. But by the same token, this would be your traditional kind of fake out area. Here is the way that I read this price action. We broke the 786, so algo target is going to be the 382. Yes, we did technically bounce to the 0.5, but that's on a closing basis. So all this is, well within reason. And then what do? We come back up to the 786. If that area is going to be sold again, which it likely is going to be sold again, seeing as a lot of profit taking is going to be going on from all the people who bought this area right here. I mean, these are just very, very common bought and algo targets. Then very likely we do probably come back down, typically things do come back down and tag at the very least the next level, which is a 618. That's 18,250. I think that's rather likely here, whether you're bullish or bearish. And then what typically does happen, actually, what does have a high probability of happening, is the 0.5 right here at 17.9. So I do think that Bitcoin could very easily swipe back onto the downside, but I would be more or less looking at that as an opportunity, using yesterday's low as a backstop pivot. So with all of that in mind, I do look at this price action as still more or less constructive on the whole. Short term, though, can we come back down? Yeah, absolutely. And if I did call it right now, I do think that Bitcoin probably does come back down around here, not based off of any, not based off of anything else, but what I just told you right now, or just told you. That sounds very fucking pompous. Sorry, I really don't want to come off like that. But what did I just want to do? Yes, let's go over here to our caretaker indicator, and let's see. Yeah, so this one on the 4 actually is defining this as a neutral zone consolidation, and it does show that momentum on the 4-hour time frame will actually remain to the upside as long as we're above, basically yesterday's low at 17,500-ish region. That's obviously going to rise up as well. But typically what I do see when this comes down and tests around the edge of the Bollinger Band right there is that we actually do put in lows, especially when they start to flatten out. But usually it does come back as a magnet first and foremost. Where can I find a good example of that? I don't think I can find any good example. Or actually, no, it's not really one right there. Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I guess this one right here, you know, kind of stretches out right there, comes back down a little bit, tests into it, and then boom, off to the races to the upside. Not a perfect example, but kind of illustrates to a lesser degree my point. This one actually does still show a little bit of downside pressure here. I'm curious what the buy hourly shows as well. Buy hourly is at a pivotal moment here. Yes. But still, yeah, and this is a signal that I'm looking for right here, but I'll be looking for it to come back down once again and play off of it. If that happens, that's going to be a damn good low signal as well. But that would also imply short-term, yes, is down. Speaking of, let's go on to the let's get through all the momentum oscillators here. 4-hour RSI, putting in a higher low on the RSI compared with what our 26th of November low was. Okay, more or less fine. Long term, does this last move destroy the constructiveness? No, as long as this actually does operate as a higher low, then yes, long term still constructive. Short term, sideways and a little bit of basically sideways. What about historical volatility percentile? We're still seeing the expansion phase that we identified happening yesterday during the Forex video, and I would say that this is likely to continue on, which would in this case once again imply that probably Bitcoin does swipe back down onto the downside, but it doesn't imply a break below it. Let's go into the 3 hour and see what the 3 hour is saying too. 3 hours more or less the same as the 4 hour. We can identify a trend line coming in right here, which is of great interest because it would be defending against the edge of the bullish control zone. Typically, those are the better reads. And what is that? What would that kind of look like in the current context of price action? Yes, 18.6 essentially operating as our current local high and looking for another swipe onto the downside, but does not imply a break below 17.9. We'll call it just yet. And same thing on HVP right here. Same thing on RSI. Actually, very, very, very similar. So we do see all of these so far on the same side, although we've only been on 2 of them just yet. We do have hidden bearish divergence on 2 hour RSI. And is that, has that already played out? I mean, it technically confirmed right here. I'd say that it confirmed on taking out the low on this one right here. So what you did get about a $200 move. No, I still think that it has a little bit more to go, especially if 2 hour Stokes turn back down here as well. But I'm curious what would be needed for that. And yes, actually, yes, that's the one that we were just looking at. No, they'll actually remain to the upside as long as they're above 18,000 bucks on this next closure. But that will certainly change in 56 minutes and 25 seconds. So if you do have that indicator, definitely reference that because that's going to probably be a nice and interesting basing area. HVP expanding as well, so good. We see pretty much all lower timeframes in concert thus far. In hourly Stokes coming down, nosediving a little bit here. And what else do we see? Same sort of hidden bearish divergence, but I'd say that the hourly is already played out. I mean, that's 18.5 all the way down to 18.3. Yeah, $200 move on an hourly. That's plenty. Hourly RSI does look like it wants to come down a little bit here. Breaking the exponential would be the next sort of triggering moment for that. Long term, I actually, this one's still fine, more or less long term, but short term, I'd be looking for a little bit of downside. And HVP coming down all the way to the low teens. In fact, I'd be looking for this one to kind of come down into the single digits actually over the next few hours, and then probably line up somewhere around regular markets open at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I also have to convert that from Central Standard Time because that's the one that I was used to when I was working in Chicago. And then fuck man, it was so bad when I was on the West Coast. It was 6:30 a.m. Start time, which means that I had to wait. I was actually waking up at 4 a.m. So now when I wake up at 5 a.m., it's really not bad at all. But at that time, I had to wake up at fucking 4. Drive. Oh, God, it fucking sucked. Jesus Christ, man. Yeah, and then no one's awake at that time, by the way. No one's fucking awake. Anyways, so all lower term timeframes do look good for a little bit of a short term pullback here. But again, I'm not calling a new low on this. I'm just saying probably back down somewhere around the last 4 hour closing low here at 17.9. That is also in line with our 0.5 fib retracement right here. and also a nice historical horizontal as well before this breakout in late November, and our major low before that major rally in middle of November. And yes, okay, so it is historically relevant right here. But I'd be looking for this area to break. So kind of like putting the puzzle pieces together. Basically, the short-term range is about 18,650 to the upside versus 18,250 to the downside. A break above 18,650 to the upside, and that's going to start to have a major avalanche of effects that we identified on the daily with momentum oscillators starting to confirm hidden bullish divergence plus structure plus higher lows plus trend, and that would start to initiate targets back up very likely towards the mid to low $19,000 region. So we're talking about $500 probably plus move. By the same token, to the downside below 18,250. Now, what time frame would I use on this? Maybe a 2 hour. Yeah, 2 hour probably does get it. Typically speaking, I like to kind of do it on a 4 hour, but if Bitcoin does do it, or even if it takes out last 4 hour low, which is 18,320, then I very likely would be looking for that next move down somewhere between about 17,900 and 18,000 bucks. And then I'd be looking for Bitcoin to try to put in a low somewhere right around this region. If it fails this region, yes, you still got the 382. Yes, you still got the same 200 simple that we looked at yesterday. But coming back down to brush it up again is not necessarily a signal of strength. And let's just go reference this signal as well. I've been talking about this a lot, the 200 simple and 200 exponential average, because EO in the Discord pointed it out. And backtesting it's actually pretty fucking good, in fact. And anytime that we do see them cross the 200 simple and 200 exponential average on the 4 hour, we do see price action essentially sucked up into it. You see this example right here on the other side, gets sucked up into it, then spat back out. See the same thing over here, gets sucked up over into it. Actually tests it 2 times on this one, which would be very similar to what we're seeing right now, and then puts in another rally for about $1,000 right there, or a little bit more than $1,000. So these are rather impressive moves. We see one right on over here. This one started that whole rally from like 9,300 to 12,500, pretty damn good. We see the same thing back and over here, very similar to our current structure actually, where Bitcoin on a massive rally, yes, comes down into a little bit of a sideways consolidation within a range between 9,000 and 10,000, and tests it once, tests it twice, boom, back up, and yeah, it does flip around a little bit, but ultimately this one does get reaccumulated and continue onwards and upwards. Same thing over here, same thing over here, and same thing over here. You get the point. So with that in mind, would it be uncharacteristic to come back down and grind this area? No, not at all. In fact, I'd be looking at it as another opportunity, but that also means that I don't want to see any closes below, especially the 200 exponential moving average, which is 17.5 actually. So if Bitcoin does close below there, then I would start to look at this as likely to kind of keel on over on the whole, and we would start to see the etchings of a legitimate downtrend forming on the daily. Of course, still have to remember and still have to keep clairvoyance with understanding that our last higher low as it stands on the most conservative fucking settings would be the 17,150-ish region right here. So as long as Bitcoin's above that region, to be fair, technically is creating higher lows. But just by coming back down there to test it would not be a signal of strength. Even just taking out yesterday's low would not be a signal of strength. So those would be 2 major warning signals. Yes, I do think that Bitcoin would still bounce here, but that bounce would likely be a major selling opportunity. So for right now, I'm cautiously I'm basically sideways, and I still run with the former assumption. Short term, extremely short term, probably a little bit of downside, but that does not mean that I'm long term bearish. Again, all higher term timeframes are bullish, and I think that it's important to once again reflect on this. Weekly's bullish, monthly is bullish, monthly is very bullish. In fact, actually, you know what? Hold on, let's go back on over here to the monthly for a second. I believe we did test into the topside Bollinger Band. Let's see, topside Bollinger Band right now is about $17,050. And our current low was 17,640. I'd say that that's close enough. If Bitcoin wants to come back down and officially test it, that's fine too. But my point with this is that if Bitcoin actually does close, November, especially December above 19,000 bucks, you're actually going to see the top side of the Bollinger Band probably be pulled up into the current wick low. So it doesn't need to be exact. This is kind of like the art and technical analysis, I suppose, in the sense that you kind of have to understand that these things are going to naturally be floating around. So we need to create a range, which is what we've done, that defines when that condition is met or not met. In this case, I would imagine that above 19,000 bucks it would be met. Maybe we need to make a reverse Trollinger band, which would be kind of funny, but actually have quite a few uses as well. Anyways, some sort of like a calculator that would allow you to kind of judge where those levels would be. But again, monthly is incredibly bullish, and then we can go to the bi-monthly and quarterly, and they're just even better. Technically haven't even closed above the top side Trollinger band just yet, but the last few times that we have, well, that's your whole rally right here. You can't even see it right there because it was too young in Bitcoin's early dildo life, and the quarterly right here, same thing as well. So all of these do shape up for long-term bullishness. Yes, the question is, does Bitcoin play out a greater pullback from where we are right now, or does it just kind of trade sideways here for a little bit and then give another try to the upside? I don't have strong opinions on this, really. Well, my strong opinion is on long-term bullishness. And then the levels that correlate with that. But other than that, as a trader, yesterday I see that move. Of course I take it, or I guess I don't really like talking about my positions anymore on stream because it seems to give off the wrong vibes, and it seems to attract like a very interesting and perhaps even maybe the wrong type of person for a community like this. I'll say that. But yeah, I'm sure that most people can figure out what the fuck I'm thinking down there. It's like we've only been talking about it for the last couple of weeks. And yes, I actually did let that position go just above 18,000 bucks, and I will likely buy it again if it comes back down. I shouldn't have said that, I guess. This is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor, blah, 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 blah. Don't listen to me. I'm an idiot on the internet, okay? Just fucking turn it off right now. Just delete Krown. Unsubscribe, please. All right, let's see. How deep in this video are we? 25 minutes already. We haven't even gone over the medium-term time frames. What about the 12-hour right here? 12 hours, very interesting here too. I want to see where 12-hour momentum also does turn back up, because right now they are sufficiently downside angled. Let's see what the 12-hour shows right here. Actually, 12-hour Stokes will remain to the downside as long as we're below basically 19,000 on the next closure. Now that obviously will change on the daily closure too, but for now, yeah, short-term momentum still to the downside and medium-term momentum still to the downside as we go through a greater contraction phase on 12-hour historical volatility percentile. So compare that with the lower term timeframes. Lower term timeframes expanding, 12-hour and I imagine daily are probably contracting. What does that imply? That would imply that Bitcoin on the short-term timeframes is going to play out some of these moves, whether it be to the $19,000 level or back down into the upper 17s, I'd imagine as well. But the higher term timeframes are still more or less a contraction phase, which would imply what? It would imply more of the same. It would imply that this is a constructive consolidation, which I would agree with. I mean, we do have higher highs and higher lows at the end of the day, so it's still best to err on the side of the upside. However, that is only relevant for the higher term timeframes, obviously. So with all of that in mind, basically it's suggesting that, hey, we're not going to break like the greater range above 19,550 like today, and we're probably not going to break below the low structure at like low $17,000 today as well. We're probably just going to see moves to and fro, and those are scalp trading opportunities in my opinion. So that's why I got rid of that position. I don't really see any major setup going on. And of course we did see the 12-hour jewel cell signal play out. Again, this is why I only care about CMEs. We saw CME give the signal on the 4th of December at 1 a.m. So it did not get the ultimate high, got this high right here, and then boom down. I'd say that the gap is now sufficiently filled. Fill my gap, baby. And does it have a little bit more on this? I mean, it might have a little bit more on this, but I would say that that's pretty nice move right there. About a $2,000 move. I'd say that you could say that it's played out. And for the most part, I mean, I think most people would actually have a better time trading if they just got rid of like all of the spot exchanges on their list and just looked at CME. This is such an easier chart to read. Look, pops back up, pops down, fills the gap down here, boom, pops back up, fills the gap over here, boom, back down. I mean, it's as a 21 and 55 have a bearish cross right there. Again, I do think that this one comes back down short term, but I'm not necessarily calling like a big breakdown just yet. I'd still run with the former assumption until proven otherwise for now. What about the 12-hour right here? Yeah, it looks like it's under pressure as well. And this chart looks wildly different than what we actually see on spot price action. So So, another move back down to the 21 exponential average in the upper $17,000 region. I think it's certainly not out of the question, but I would be looking at that as first and foremost an opportunity with, not because it's guaranteed to work out, but because there's just a nice risk reward right there with obvious areas of management. And then if it breaks, well, then we can talk about new trends forming in Bitcoin. So with that said, I think it's time to go down the old listy list here. I want to see what traditional markets are doing. Ooh, big pullback in traditional markets. That's not going to be good for Bitcoin. Yeah. Oh, wow. So yesterday I was going to be completely wrong on this one. Just looking for this one to float a little bit more to the upside. To be fair, we did get new all-time highs, but now it's time for traditional markets in line with Bitcoin to play the game of, is this a fake out? Or are we actually having some downside movements here? And actually be looking for this one to come a little bit further to the downside. 12,100 for the next bouncy bounce area on the daily. Short-term time frames probably do attempt a bounce, like probably even from here and probably back up towards 12,450. So short-term up, medium-term down. Yeah, this one's going to go into contraction, and we do have a little bit of bullish evidence here too. Yeah, nice one. Yeah, so I would be looking for this one to pop back up short term. Like I said, about 12,450. If it starts to close above 12,450, then yeah, I'd look for a retest of the prior highs. I mean, this is a pretty aggressive move to the downside here, and a lot of momentum oscillators are being reset right now. So it's actually, I do look at this as constructive on the whole. The question is, does it get sold into after that next bounce, and do we target the next major area in the lower $12,000 region? I'd rather kind of define that on the Forex video later today. What about SPY futures? Maybe this one's easier to read. Actually, yeah, not looking bad at all. I mean, yes, it can very easily come down to about 36.25, but I'd be looking at that as an opportunity on the first pass. And short term, does it want to bounce first? It certainly looks like it. Probably be looking for a bounce back up towards like 36.80, 36.90. So short term up on on major markets, and then I'd be looking for the decision point in this range right here. Again, for SPY would be about 36.80, 36.85. For Nasdaq, I think it was 12,450. Do I remember that properly? Yeah, 12,450. So those are some of the pivots right there. Let's go check out MicroStrategy as well. I think this one was a damn good tell yesterday. Remember, it topped out at the same historical level that it absolutely shattered back on over here in October of 2000. And what do you know? Still getting respected. Yes, as you typically do. Comes back down, fills the gap, now back up. So that does make me think that Bitcoin probably does do something similar here too. It came back down, filled that gap, and I'd probably be looking for today to try some upside actually. And again, these things, kind of trade together. I'd imagine that MicroStrategy is going to be the most relevant traditional market stock that kind of correlates with Bitcoin. We can also look at GBTC as well, but I don't think that GBTC is an easy chart to read. I think it's actually much more difficult. Sometimes it gives you a move beforehand, but other than that, as far as structure goes, just like regular old TA, I don't trust it. I just don't. Where the fuck is it for real, sir? Where's my GBTC? Show me. All right, we'll just do this the old-fashioned way. GBTC. All right, grayscale on OTC. Yeah, again, if I'm looking at this chart, I'm like, oh god, what a monstrosity. This looks really bad. But if I'm looking at this historically, it just not an obvious one. But I suppose if we are looking for pullbacks, the 10 simple is going to be your obvious choice right here, in line with your last few highs from 2019 and also your big breakdowns from February 2018. Yeah, that would be right in line with the 10 simple. So I guess if anything, I'd be looking for downside based off this. That is a reversal, shooting star dildo right there, plus continuation of the downside. Not good. But again, I don't think that this chart is the easiest one to read. I think MicroStrategy and then looking at Nasdaq and even XLK. Our tech sector over here, which is still fine as well. I actually just look at this as a retest of the breakout on the weekly. On a daily though, does it look like it has a little more venom on it? Yeah, maybe down to the 21 short term towards 123, but I'd be looking for a bounce attempt there at the very least, and extremely short term timeframes. What do we see right here? Yeah, probably a little bit of downside on the short-term time frame. So yeah, short-term downside, but I'd be looking for it to try a bounce from that level that we just marked off. Okay, what about other highly esteemed cryptocurrency coins in this lovely market? We got Link over here versus Bitcoin, and what are you doing, Mr. Link? Death Cross is confirmed, but it's really doing its best to hold on to the 377 right now. Usually when I do see something like that, it's a signal that, hey, probably probably does get a little bit of a boost up first, maybe trades back up towards the 72,000 Satoshi region. I do think long term this one has some more downside to go, likely down to the mid 55,000 or 54,000 territory. But short term, does it attempt to bounce first? Probably yes. Cardano, I'd imagine same thing. No jokes today with Cardano. People don't like that. But short term probably does try a bounce. Long term, absolutely amazing. It's really, really great. It's actually incredible. And you know what? If I didn't lose all my fucking money, from the last 3 years trading this, investing in this, I would be doubling down. You know what? I'm deploying the last of my capital, which translates to my last $10 from Coinbase to, I don't know, where you can buy this. Binance. Yeah, Binance. And I'm going to go buy alt on Binance. Like, Jesus fucking Christ. But yeah, still long-term, extremely shitty. What about Buterol versus US dollar? Because that's the actual one that I care about. Let's see. Very similar to Bitcoin. Very good close on the daily here too. Extremely good close. This one looks like it wants to trade back up towards 590. Did we hit our 535 target? Yeah, actually we exceeded it by a few bucks there too, all the way down to 529. Not bad. Short term though, I'd be looking for this one to come down, and let's actually mark this off for a 4 hour. Actually, this chart's a little bit easier to read than Bitcoin too. Again, long term, this is so far a good structure, but I do think that short term it does have a little bit of downside here. Probably trades back down towards maybe 550, maybe even goes guns for this trend line over here, of which I'm not a big fan of diagonals, but that would be about 545, so somewhere in that range, and I'll look for another bounce attempt in that region. So again, long term, I still remain with my overall bullish bias, but short term, probably a little bit of downside here. And then we get to play the game of, is this a reversal, or is this your next higher low opportunity before fucking moon riches for life? Just kidding. That's a joke. There's no such thing. It was all a lie. No, I am long-term bullish on Bitcoin, like I say, but I do want to remain more grounded, hopefully more grounded. All right. Let's see. We do have a 3-day closing today. Is there anything of interest right here? 3-day still above all major moving averages, I imagine, on all charts. Yeah. The 3-day still just kind of stair-stepping its way up. I don't have any major issues with this as it is. 3-day Stokes, what are you doing? Or what will you be doing? No, motherfucker, that's goddamn Buterol. Yeah, here's one I'm looking for. Now, I'm sure a lot of people are going to be like, but Krown, it's in the critical zone. We must go down. No. Look, it can stay for fucking months in that region. In fact, that's a good thing in a trending market. It's a very good thing. But when you start to lose a critical zone, that's when you're fucked. Just kidding. Don't listen. I'm curious what it'd be looking like right here. Yeah, we're going to remain to the downside on 3-day Stokes as long as we're below 19,550. So 19,550 is still the resolution point for the greater range. But I imagine most people aren't too concerned with that right now, and it's mostly going to be focused on the short term. So let's, we're 36 minutes into this. It's time to wrap this bitch up. Let's do this on the short-term time frames, actually. Let's do it on this chart. No. All right, here we go. Short-term time frame range, 18,650 to the upside versus 18,250 to the downside. If I'm going off a structure right here, yes, long-term still bullish on this. On the whole, that means the whole structure between about 16.5 and 19,550 with those as resolution points. In fact, we could probably even use 17,150 to the downside, as that is our last prior low. However, short-term, I would be looking for this one to likely come back down at the very least to 18,250 and stab the 618 fib retracement right here. If that area does break, of which I imagine it probably does, I'd be looking for an extension probably to test back down towards yesterday's closing 4-hour lows at the 0.5 at 17,900. Maybe another wick back down to the 200 simple here as well around the 382, similar to what we saw yesterday. But as long as these areas hold, especially, I'm looking at this as a macro higher low, and the daily trend remains, and the trend is your friend. And as it stands right now, the daily is looking, more or less fine. If we can close today's daily dodo above yesterday's closure, especially, which was 18,550 about, then yes, I would be looking for this to pop back up into the lower $19,000 region. Next target would be about 19.3, I believe, and we'd also be having some hidden bullish divergence confirmed on the daily as well between this point and this point, correlated with this low at 17,150 versus this low at 18,250, and that would look pretty damn good. And that would essentially mark this off and really start to make this look like one massive ascending triangle at the highs, which would be a bullish reaccumulation formation, and have targets like we spoke about towards I believe it was, if we pull back out on over here, when in doubt, pull it out, would have a measure move pointed towards about the 2.272 Fibonacci extension, which is just below 23,000, with points of interest along the way at 22,000 and 20,500. Now, by the same token, if Bitcoin does break back down and we start to break below, especially yesterday's low on the 4-hour, then I'd look for extension, another at the very least $500 towards the $17,000 base. Probably another short-term bounce implied there, but that's where things do get a lot more shaky, because remember, that is where Bitcoin's last higher low is on the daily. If that starts to get destroyed, then we can talk about actual reversal. We can talk about targets down to 15,000, 14,000, and maybe even beyond there if things get really crazy. But those would be my first two choices. And that's where I do start to switch around to being not macro bearish, but at least a good medium to long term move bearish within that context, as that'd be our first actual reversal on the daily since since actually like coronavirus times, which is rather impressive. So fair enough. With all of that in mind, I do think that pretty much solidifies what I've been saying. Is there anything else that I want to mention here? Maybe not. Maybe not. Of course, to the upside, if Bitcoin does break back above that 18.6 pivot right here, whether it be on a 2-hour or 4-hour delta closure, yeah, we could use 18.600 actually. Maybe 18.650 on a 2-hour versus 18.6 on a 4-hour. Then I'd be looking for price action to find its way back up towards 19.2 to 19.3, play out the hidden bullish divergence that we identified on the daily. But for right now, short term, I would be looking for this one to swipe back onto the downside. Then we get to play the game of, is this a higher low or not? And, first pass, I probably would be looking at this as a higher low. And with that said, I'd like to wish you the best of the best and the haps of the happiest. Take care, and until next time.